Sometimes the silence of space feels like it has a soul. I spent months surrounded by stars, but nothing compared to the day Saturn spoke to me. At first, I thought it was solar wind, a glitch in the radio, or maybe my own mind coming apart. But that voice, calm, ancient, almost human, called me by my name. And ever since, I haven't been able to sleep in peace. Log entry, day 247. The click of the recorder fills the cabin with its dry metallic echo. Day 247, I say, my voice bouncing off the steel walls. Outside, the void stretches endlessly, a darkness so deep it swallows even thoughts. The light of Saturn spills through the window, golden and hypnotic. Sometimes I think the planet breathes, and I'm trapped inside its exhale. Time has lost all meaning here. The clocks still tick, but space doesn't recognize days. I barely sleep, 2 hours at most, and wake up certain that something is watching me. I can't tell if it's paranoia or instinct. The silence of the universe is heavy. It feels more like listening than absence. I record these words to keep from disappearing. Each entry is proof that I still exist, that there's a man inside this suit, not just a machine drifting among the stars. Sometimes I hear myself speak and don't recognize the voice. It's as if the void is slowly absorbing what's left of me. Today, something strange happened. While recalibrating the communication system, I picked up a faint noise from Saturn's direction. Weak, irregular, like a whisper breaking through static. At first, I assumed it was radiation interference, but it repeated 3 times, perfectly timed. Pattern, a call. I listened for what felt like hours. The sound pulsed in sync with my heartbeat. It wasn't random, it had intention, a soft, emotional tone, almost like longing. And something inside me responded even though I didn't understand what I was hearing. It was as if the planet itself was trying to speak. I saved the recording and replayed it. The signal was clean, no natural distortion. The tone was human-like, yet distant, like a voice coming from underwater, or from inside my own head. The feeling was unsettling. I was alone, yet I didn't feel alone. And that was the most terrifying part of all. I leaned my forehead against the cabin glass and stared at Saturn one last time before shutting the recorder off. Its rings turned slowly, catching the light like shattered mirrors. I took a deep breath and pressed stop. But the sound kept going, even with everything powered down. And that's when I realized, maybe space isn't silent. Maybe it just chooses who it wants to talk to. Echoes in the void. I spent the entire night trying to trace the signal. The cabin was silent except for the low hum of life support and the faint crackle of static from the speakers. I played the recording dozens of times, volume at maximum, until I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There was rhythm. It wasn't random noise, it was a melody, hidden deep within the radio waves. The frequency behaved like something alive. It rose, dipped, paused, almost as if it were breathing. I adjusted the receiver to widen the spectrum and saw the waveform pulsing in perfect intervals, repeating every 27 seconds. No cosmic interference behaves like that. None. And yet I was listening to something that seemed sentient. I started recording each pulse, one by one, and realized there was emotion in it. A kind of sorrow, a quiet call. I closed my eyes, and for a moment, I felt that the sound knew me. As if the voice was aware that someone out here was listening. It was impossible, but impossibility was beginning to feel ordinary in this silence. I remembered what the instructors used to say before launch. Space will test you, not by what you see, but by what you believe you're seeing. Back then, I thought it was just a metaphor for loneliness. Now I understand. The void isn't empty, it's too full. So full that sanity has to bend to make room. I connected the ship's main speakers and let the sound fill the cabin. It echoed like a distant choir, haunting and beautiful. The voice seemed to form shapes, not words, but almost. My mind tried to fill the gaps, and I swear I heard something close to my name, soft, drawn out, like a dream that refuses to fade. That's when I made my mistake. I answered. I pressed the mic and said, "This is Cooper, I hear you." I waited. Nothing. Then suddenly the frequency spiked. One short pulse, 3 high tones, a pause, then complete silence. I stared at the console, heart pounding. I didn't know if I'd made contact or awakened something. I shut everything down and sat there, motionless. My breathing echoed inside the helmet like thunder. And as I stared into the void, realization dawned. Space hadn't answered in words, but it had answered. And from that moment on, everything I once believed was lifeless began to look back at me. The fear of madness. The sound returned, not the same rhythm, not the same calm. This time it was irregular, pulsing, almost angry. I spent hours trying to figure out if it came from the system, the transmitter, or my own mind. Sometimes I think space doesn't drive us insane. It simply reveals who we truly are once the noise of the world disappears. And here, where silence has weight, I began to doubt my sanity. Loneliness isn't the same as isolation. Isolation is physical, measurable. Loneliness seeps in like cold smoke, creeping through your thoughts until it changes the sound of your own voice. I started talking to myself just to fill the emptiness. "You still here, Cooper?" I'd ask, and wait for a reply that never came. Or maybe it did, from somewhere I didn't understand. The nights, if you can call them that, became endless. Sleep was dangerous, dreams were worse. In those dreams, the voice grew clearer, calling my name as if it had known me forever. And when I woke, the echo lingered in the corners of the cabin, as though space had recorded my nightmares just to play them back and see if I'd break. I began logging every hallucination as scientific data. I told myself it was part of some psychological experiment, a classified test of the mission. It was easier to believe that than to admit Saturn was speaking to me. But the more I wrote, the thinner the line became between data and delusion, between logic and faith. The lights started to flicker without cause. The instruments spiked with readings that made no sense. I watched the dials move on their own as the voice grew louder, soft, insistent. "Cooper." It was almost tender, like compassion. That made it worse. Something in that tone made me feel small, exposed, known. I cut power to everything, but the sound didn't stop. I removed my helmet, covered my ears, screamed. But you can't escape what's inside your head. The noise wasn't coming from the equipment anymore. It was coming from me, as if my own mind had learned to mimic the voice. I was trapped inside a mind that wasn't fully mine. And that's when I learned the real horror of space. It isn't dying alone. It's realizing the universe has eyes, and that they've been watching you all along, waiting to see what you'll do when there's nothing left to hold on to. The 7.1 frequency. I woke to the alarm blaring across the cabin. The console displayed a new signal, locked onto the same coordinates as before. The frequency had stabilized, 7.1 hertz, too low for any human communication. And yet, it sounded like a voice. I looped the transmission and listened for hours, dissecting every detail. There was cadence in it, rhythm, even emotion. like an ancient hymn buried beneath the static. I switched the spectrometer to visual mode. What appeared on the screen froze me. Bursts of light forming geometric shapes, almost like written symbols. They repeated, morphing into spirals and lines that seemed deliberate, intelligent. The sound and the light were connected, a single message encoded across two realities. It wasn't random, it was language. I turned up the gain and the cabin filled with the hum of resonance. The voice deepened into a chorus like a cathedral hidden behind the veil of space. Outside the window, Saturn spun slowly, its rings gleaming gold and crimson. Each ring pulsed in sync with the sound, like the planet itself was singing, a harmony older than creation. I sent the data to the ship's main computer, desperate for logic. The AI analyzed the waveform, the symbols, the intervals, and returned nothing. No match to any human pattern, binary sequence, or mathematical constant. It was beyond the catalogue of science. But what terrified me most was that it felt familiar, as if I was meant to understand it, not decode it. Finally, I broke the silence. "If you can hear me, what do you want?" The hum stopped. Total silence. My heart thudded loud enough to fill the void. Then a single tone, deep, resonant, endless, swept through the cabin. Every surface trembled, and I realized what it was. A breath. Something enormous had just taken a breath. The ship flickered, lights dimming, screens flooding with random numbers. But within the chaos, a pattern emerged. 3 glowing symbols, repeating like a heartbeat. The same symbols I'd seen in the sound waves. It wasn't coincidence, it was communication. Saturn wasn't just responding, it was listening. I stared through the viewport, frozen. For the first time I felt it. Not just awe, but fear of understanding. Because if the universe was alive, then every star, every planet, every atom might be watching. And if it speaks, what happens when we finally answer back? The call. In the last few hours, the ship began recording intense electromagnetic fluctuations. The lights flickered, systems rebooted on their own, and the monitors displayed patterns that defied any known logic. I tried to stay calm, but something was different this time. The sound wasn't coming from the instruments anymore. It filled the air itself, humming through the walls, vibrating in my chest like a living presence. Then a surge of energy rippled across the hull. Everything went dark. For a few seconds, there was nothing, no sound, no light, not even the faint hum of the life support. When the systems came back online, I saw something impossible. Luminous symbols hovering above the console. They weren't projections or reflections. They floated in the air, pulsing softly like fragments of light with purpose. I reached out instinctively. The glow felt warm, almost alive. The symbols rotated slowly, connecting with one another, forming a spiral. At the center of it was a brighter light, and I could swear it was watching me. Then the frequency deepened, low and resonant, and a single word emerged, drenched in static, yet unmistakable. Come. My body reacted before my mind did. A wave of dizziness hit me, and the cabin seemed to breathe, walls expanding and contracting as if alive. I tried hailing mission control, but the radio was dead. No transmission, no response, just that word, echoing again. Come. The sensors picked up a disturbance near Saturn's rings. A glowing anomaly, shaped like a spiral, identical to the pattern I had just seen in the symbols. It looked like the planet had opened a wound in its atmosphere. From within that wound, the same sound pulsed, rhythmic and hypnotic, like a heartbeat too large to belong to anything mortal. Every rational part of me screamed to turn back. But curiosity, or maybe faith, pulled harder. I disengaged the autopilot and set the course manually toward the source of the signal. My heart pounded. The closer I got, the louder the voice became, growing from a whisper into something almost melodic, as if it knew I was approaching. As the distance closed, the planet shifted. Golden clouds turned crimson, and a strange fog began to rise from the rings. The instruments went wild, readings spiking beyond their limits. The air inside the cabin grew thick, heavy. And in that unbearable stillness I understood the call wasn't for the ship. It was for me. Between science and faith, Saturn fills the entire window now. Its rings turn slowly, glowing like circles of fire around a sleeping god. I stare, and something deep inside me shifts. This isn't observation anymore, it's worship. For the first time since the mission began, I feel the weight of awe pressing against my chest. I am no longer a scientist, no longer an explorer. I am a witness standing before something holy. I start a new log. My voice trembles as I speak. Maybe space is how God watches us back. I let the words linger in the air, echoing softly in the cabin. Everything I've ever learned, equations, physics, logic, suddenly feels small. Because if the universe can speak, then it isn't just matter, it's mind. It's spirit wearing the disguise of light and dust. A memory surfaces where my father and I on the porch when I was a child. He pointed at the sky and said, "Every star is one of God's eyes." I laughed back then, thinking it was poetry. Now, staring into Saturn's endless gaze, I realize he might have been right. Somewhere beyond the data and sensors, I can feel that same gaze, steady and ancient, looking right through me. The instruments begin to pulse again, but not chaotically this time, rhythmically, gracefully. Radiation levels rise and fall like breathing. The graphs form patterns that are too perfect to be coincidence. Each pulse matches my heartbeat. I close my eyes and stop resisting. I don't just hear the signal anymore, I feel it. It's not noise, it's harmony. Reason wants to analyze, but the soul understands. Science asks how. Faith asks why. Out here, between the two, I realize they are the same search, the same hunger to understand what moves the stars and stirs the human heart. And maybe both lead to the same truth, that we are being watched not by indifference, but by love too vast to comprehend. Then the radio crackles, soft static giving way to a single word, clear and human. Sun. My breath catches. The air feels heavy, warm. Sun. It repeats again, gentle, comforting. It can't be real, yet it feels more real than anything I've ever known. There's no analysis for this, no hypothesis, only surrender. Tears burn my eyes, not from fear, but from something purer. Recognition. For the first time in my life, I'm not looking out at the universe. The universe is looking back. And in its gaze, I finally see what it means to be alive. The risk of curiosity. The call hasn't stopped. It's stronger now, clearer, almost desperate. Every particle of the ship vibrates with it, like the hull itself has become part of the frequency. I know I should stop. I know what the mission manual says. Do not approach unidentified anomalies. But curiosity is a force stronger than fear. It's what drove humanity to light its first fire, and what might drive me to my last. I plot a course toward the light. The ship groans under the strain, metal protesting as if it knows what I shouldn't do. The planet's glow deepens to a burning gold, and the anomaly shines ahead, not threatening, but beautiful, irresistible. That's the danger of the unknown. It doesn't attack, it invites. And once it whispers your name, resistance is impossible. Alarms scream across the cabin, the temperature spikes, the instruments flare red, but I don't stop. The anomaly expands like a living storm, bending the starlight around it. Colors I've never seen swirl before my eyes. Crimson, amber, violet. A cosmic symphony painted across the void. The sound that fills the air isn't static anymore. It's music. My body begins to react. Breathing feels heavier. Gravity flickers like a broken pulse. Yet within the pressure, I feel calm. There's a serenity in the surrender, as if the voice is saying, "To understand, you must let go." And I believe it. I shouldn't, but I do. Logic fades, replaced by something deeper, older. Faith, maybe, or madness. Then movement. Out there, among the rings, shapes glide like shadows through liquid gold. They're not ships or debris. They're alive, watching, circling, waiting. I know it without knowing how, and that realization sends a shiver of awe through me. I am the first to see them, and perhaps the last. I slow the engines. The radiation is beyond safe limits. The systems beg me to retreat, but some truths can only be found on the other side of fear. My hands shake as I push the ship forward, past the last line of safety. Saturn's rings blur, the colors stretch into infinity, and the hum of the voice grows until it fills the entire cabin, inside and out. I understand now that I've crossed something invisible, a threshold meant for gods, not men. There may be no return from this. And strangely, I don't want one, because after hearing the voice of the universe, silence will never be enough again. The contact. The anomaly is right in front of me now. A whirlpool of light and shadow suspended between Saturn's rings. At its center, something pulses like a heart made of starlight. I bring the ship closer, ignoring every alarm screaming at me to stop. The radio bursts with static, and between the cracks of noise, I hear it again. One word, faint but clear enough to freeze me in place. You. Every hair on my body stands on end. I try to speak, but the words die in my throat. Then light floods the cabin, warm, golden, and almost fluid. The hum of the engines disappears. The air itself feels alive. I float, weightless, as the world slows to silence. Even time seems to hold its breath. The only thing I can hear is the rhythm of my heartbeat. Too loud, too human. The light shifts to blue, then white. Through the haze, shapes emerge, silhouettes, translucent and fluid, moving like waves. They're not bodies. They're energy, will, thought. One of them draws near, its form bending, almost bowing, as if it studies me. And in its glow, I feel something impossible. Peace. A peace so deep it silences every fear I've ever known. There's no sound, yet I understand. The light touches the ship's hull, and a warmth spreads through everything, as though the universe itself exhales. Then the voice returns, no longer distant or broken, calm, human, ancient. You too were made from the dust of stars. The words aren't heard, they're felt, vibrating in the bones, rewriting what I thought I knew about existence. Tears blur my vision, not from fear, from recognition, because in that moment I realize I am not an observer of the cosmos. I am a part of it. Every breath, every thought, every heartbeat is a fragment of something vast and awake. The line between man and infinity dissolves. I'm no longer separate. I am the silence, the light, the dust, the song. The light begins to fade, retreating into the spiral. The shapes dissolve into a glow that lingers in the void. I try to speak, to thank them, but all that escapes my lips is a whisper. I heard you. Saturn floats quietly beyond the window, its rings shimmering like sacred symbols. Something inside me has changed forever. Not seen, not measured, but felt. The recording still runs. On playback, it's just static. But buried in the noise is a pulse, faint and rhythmic, like a heartbeat woven into the silence. I stare at Saturn and understand the contact was never made through instruments. It was made through the soul. The revelation. The silence after contact isn't empty. It's full. It hums softly, vibrating through the cabin like the afterglow of a great storm. I stare at Saturn and everything feels alive now. The light, the dust, the shadows moving in the distance. It's as though the entire planet is breathing in harmony, aware of me, aware of what just happened. The universe feels closer, heavier, more intimate. I try to make a new recording, but my voice fails. I just sit there, watching my reflection in the dark window. My chest feels warm, as if something has been placed inside it, a fragment of understanding I can't explain. The words echo in my head. You were made from the dust of stars. I used to think that was poetry. Now I know it's truth. The simplest, most terrifying kind of truth. My rational mind tries to fight back. It was an illusion, isolation, oxygen deprivation. I repeat it like a mantra, but my heart refuses to agree. The memory of the light still hums beneath my skin, soft and constant. It wasn't madness, it was revelation. And that realization terrifies me more than losing my mind ever could. Hours pass. I analyze the data, the frequency patterns, the radiation, the light waves, and the numbers behave differently. They don't follow human logic anymore. The readings are synchronized, elegant, perfectly balanced. It's like the ship itself is in tune with something greater, something intelligent. Maybe creation itself is a song, and we are notes that forgot the melody. I whisper into the dark, if the universe is conscious, what are we inside it? My question hangs there, unanswered. Then deep within I feel something, not an answer, but a knowing. A quiet voice that doesn't speak in words. You are the eyes through which the cosmos sees itself. The thought cracks something open inside me. I feel both infinite and small. The ship drifts silently, but I no longer feel like its pilot. The fear of death fades into something else, acceptance, awe, connection. I realize eternity isn't somewhere out there. It's within everything, pulsing quietly, waiting to be remembered. Maybe the mission was never about finding life, but about recognizing that life never stopped surrounding us. Saturn turns slowly, bathed in gold. Its rings shimmer like the edges of a great mirror. And in that reflection I finally understand. It wasn't showing me the stars. It was showing me myself. Then, faint and clear, the voice returns one last time, not from the radio, but from within. Now you understand. The final transmission time has started moving again, though it feels softer, slower, almost merciful. The recorder clicks on, its light blinking like a heartbeat. My voice sounds calm now, distant. If anyone ever finds this, know that the universe speaks and what it says can't be translated, only felt. The cabin lights dim to a gentle amber, and Saturn turns quietly beyond the window, ancient and serene, as if nothing ever happened. I glance at the glass and catch my reflection. There's peace in my face now and something else, something I can't name. I remember every step of this journey, the fear, the loneliness, the madness, and finally, the encounter. All of it led here to one truth that both science and faith whisper in their own way. The cosmos is not silent, it's aware, and we are part of its awareness. One by one, I power down the systems. The engines fade, the hum of life support softens. The silence that follows isn't emptiness, it's music too vast to hear. The voice no longer speaks, but its presence remains, quiet and eternal. I realize it never left. It's here, in the rhythm of my pulse, in the trembling of the stars, in the very act of breathing. The final words come on their own, quiet and certain. Don't search for the end among the stars, it's within you. I leave the recorder running, staring into the horizon as Saturn drifts into a sea of light. My body relaxes, my thoughts dissolve. For the first time in months, I feel weightless. Not from zero gravity, but from release. The transmission continues. A faint tone hums through the static. Low, steady, almost like a sigh. It's the same sound I heard at the beginning, now softer, resolved. Maybe it's a farewell, or maybe it's a beginning. Then all is still again. The mission ends, but the voice waits, patient and eternal, for someone else who dares to listen. Now, as the recording fades and the echo of that voice dissolves into infinity, only one certainty remains. Something out there heard me, and it answered. The cold, distant universe revealed itself as a mirror of what lies within us. Mystery, fear, and an unending hunger to understand. Saturn stands motionless, a guardian of secrets time forgot. And I, Cooper, leave this final log not as an astronaut, but as a witness, because some truths are not discovered through science, but through silence.